Hello, hello everyone. This music feels very appropriate to begin a bad ending. So, today we're doing the first of CAISSA's 2 bad endings. We're currently in the Interlude chapter for Crimson, where we pick between CAISSA and Jack. I'm here because, based on my choices in the common route, we didn't actually run into CAISSA this time. So I did everything the same, except that I went and met with Ruben instead. So we had that scene, didn't run into CAISSA. I have the confident, stubborn, and analytical traits this time. And Rory might not be around anymore. That's not necessary for this bad ending, just as a heads up. But I was curious what happens if you don't save Rory, like what happens in the court when he's not there. So my morbid curiosity went out. I don't even know if I get that far in these bad endings, but anyway, just as a heads up, that's what happened. And we got some new inner thoughts here because she's like, I don't know who this guy is. I peered out to find Jack and 3 other men. 2 were in suits and the other seemed familiar, but I couldn't place where I recognized him from. Based on how the 4 of them interacted, I got the feeling it was this guy that was in charge, not Jack. Okay, so, not yet. Unsure what was happening, I stumbled out of the car. Not a very graceful attempt. But I wasn't feeling particularly graceful at the moment either. I just didn't want to stay in the car where I couldn't hear them. The shorter man with dark hair looked my way. His blue eyes were cold and unimpressed as he regarded me. Granted, I was in a sorry state, but still. Rude. Not yet. Okay, this is, like, completely different. Jack shifted, positioning himself between us.
CAISSA,
What is going on here? Where are we right now? There we go. Well, a little bit. I didn't appreciate being told to be quiet, but I couldn't contribute much to their conversation anyway. I felt awful. If I was being realistic, I wasn't even sure I'd make it that far if I tried to walk the short distance to where they were standing. Something was off about this situation, but what could I even do about it at this point? I had the feeling Jack hadn't quite told me the full truth about himself, because those men with him didn't look like they were part of some ragged group of Espers trying to hide from society. And that was the impression he'd given me about what the court was. These guys were well dressed, and that car looked pretty high class, too. Suspicious Jack is suspicious.
anyway, that's about the gist of it. I think I understand the situation.
There we go. Okay, now we're cooking. So we gotta stay quiet, go on CAISSA's route. And we gotta go back to the distressingly beautiful. This is our first time thinking distressingly beautiful. He was beautiful. Distressingly so. Refined features, pale blue eyes framed by dark lashes that had me a little jealous. I'm a lot jealous, honestly. Must have good genes. Lucky. But his features were so cold, his expression shut off. It wasn't that he was clearly a serious person. There was something remote about him, like he had a wall up between himself and others. Or maybe just me. I wonder what that tattoo is. Okay. And... okay, so first option, we've done this before, not cold. We'll continue. Gave us his jacket anyway. Okay, so he gave us the jacket, and then she thinks, maybe it's just because they think I'm a queen rank, though. Well, not maybe. I was certain that was it. They went to so much trouble to get me, they probably wanted me to be. I don't know, not shivering and terrified as they took me wherever I was going, probably. Okay, so, we made it. First shower. It's already a little bit different. Interesting. He'd spoken of a group of refugees, Espers trying to avoid being discovered by hiding out in This mansion was so far outside my expectations, I found myself frightened of what it meant. How did CAISSA fit in when it came to the court? Some sort of wealthy benefactor? He had mentioned his father before. I didn't remember too much about that, but I recalled that his father seemed to be the one in charge. So maybe that's who Carrie meant by boss. But there had been a level of trepidation around mentions of CAISSA's father. What does that mean? I couldn't grasp any of it, and that was frightening. Please, let this have been the right choice. Okay, we're back. Okay, we're here for checkup, not an execution. With how serious everyone else is around here, it feels more like the latter. He chuckled and motioned me over.
It may feel that way, but I assure you I'm a doctor, not an executioner.
All right. I gave CAISSA a sidelong look as I made my way to the sofa Dr. Rosenthal was directing me to. I guess there wasn't much use for privacy here, was there? Are we... yeah, we're back. Okay. And now, for our next choice... okay, next choice is a different option. So, CAISSA is an Esper? I shouldn't be surprised, but I really didn't expect it of anyone I met, did I? I wasn't used to this world, this side of society. The doctor laughed, and a slight noise came from the woman beside CAISSA. It might have been a laugh, or a scoff. I'd almost forgotten she was there.
You weren't aware? Not only is he an Esper, he's a king rank, no less.
Okay, pretty sure we read about king ranks already because of Magnus. Yep, we're good. Really? But they were so rare, even more so than queens. I had thought Magnus Ulrich, the head of Endgame, was the only known king on the planet. The idea of there being another one was odd, somehow. Who had I gotten myself involved with? I had no idea what to make of this development.
You could say it runs in the family, as CAISSA's older brother was also. That's enough, Rosenthal. Get on with it. I told you we don't have much time.
Ooh. Man, Rosenthal just wants to, like, share everything. I'm like, that's kind of divulging a lot to somebody you just met. The look on his face wasn't encouraging, and while the doctor didn't look intimidated, he sighed and put his scanner away without continuing. So, his brother is a sensitive topic. Noted. That said, had Dr. Rosenthal been about to say that CAISSA's older brother was also a king? How had the two of them escaped Endgame's notice? Even here in Delphine... okay, not yet.
At any rate, it's quite surprising you're able to mimic him at all, Miss Leone. Most queen ranks cannot completely copy the complexity of a king's psi waves.
Okay... yep, I think we read this already. Good.
What an impressive feat!
I wish it wasn't. When I thought about it logically, there was no way I was a simple infantry, was there? With the teleporting I had done, the building, the flashes of foresight, it had been a useless hope from the start. Okay, there we go. And then we get to meet Dad. Shaking and terrified after what CAISSA said, I still straightened and met his gaze, ignoring the way my heart rate spiked. Okay, this is probably because we have different traits, maybe? Her reaction to Caris might be a bit different. Talk about stress. The man's lips twisted, a slight semblance of a smile. Or perhaps a sneer. I wasn't sure which. Okay. Ooh. She's being a little stubborn. But I'm not finished yet. I want answer. CAISSA took me by the upper arm, startling me into silence as he guided me to the door.
If you are wise, you will learn quickly there is one rule in this place that will keep you alive to see tomorrow. Obey. You may get away with it with me, but my father does not take kindly to those who argue. Remember that.
He released me when we reached the door.
Now, go back to your room. I wish to be alone.
I glanced back as I stepped through the door, and Quesa was standing with his back to me, one hand pressed to his temple. Well, that went very well, I think. Okay, I'm not emotional this time, so I don't get that option with Jack. We can do... Why did you lie to me? I don't think we've done this one yet. No, we did the cautious one. First time, emotional second time. Why did you lie to me? How could you act like you were saving me, only to dump me in a place where people casually threatened to kill me? How could you do that? His smile faded, but the sigh that followed made it seem like the accusation was annoying more than anything else. I was standing there with the world falling from under my feet, and he was just irritated I was upset about it. You're a horrible person.
I really didn't make any promises to the contrary. I never said I was a good person, or that I was one of the good guys. But you're the one who made the choice to come with me.
You lied to me! You said we were going to a place for refugees, and now I'm here. You were supposed to take me somewhere safe. Is this your idea of that? A place where people talk about my life like it's something that can be thrown away like trash?
Well...
And why is the Fianchetto family even involved in this?
Look, first... I'm gonna make excuses. You might want to get used to it, Butterfly. You won't be leaving.
My eyes narrowed slightly. You seem awfully sure about that.
I am sure.
Well, I'm not.
No one leaves here. Not alive. I'm sorry I misled you.
Oh, we'll see about that, Jack. Caris isn't the only enemy, but he is an enemy. One that intends to keep me prisoner in this mansion for the foreseeable future. Whether or not you see that as your job.
Perhaps. But everyone in this part of the mansion is loyal to CAISSA. And while it may be difficult for you to consider us friends, I hope you can see that, at the very least, we will not harm you.
I wish I could believe that. I'm sure you understand why that's difficult for me right now. Though I had to admit, CAISSA had more than enough opportunity to harm me if he wanted, or even threaten me. And aside from warning me about his father, he hadn't really done that either. If Carrie wanted to say anything else, she didn't get a chance. And then Celeste popped in. Hello, Celeste. Okay, we've done both of these options before. Which one am I doing today? I'm still delaying, okay. Delay. Ooh, she's gonna give Veli back the sass. I'm okay with this. Then I won't say it's nice to meet you either. Because I agree, it's not. He smirked, as if amused by that retort. I steeled my jaw, determined to not let any measure of uncertainty show through. I was already tired of people in this place looking down on me. I like that Veli was like, respect. Weirdly, that seemed to make him happy. I don't know how I feel about Veli being happy.
I've also never almost killed myself or anyone else with an uncontrolled psi burst I released out of panic.
Just intentional ones? He gave me a thin smile.
Yes, and you'll learn to do the same. So I recommend taking my advice.
I was in a high-stress situation I didn't expect, I hope you realize.
Something that is bound to happen again. You need to learn how to cope, because next time you will hurt someone you don't intend to hurt. Or worse. And I suspect your fragile little heart won't be able to bear harming anyone.
Not wanting to be a murderer doesn't make me fragile.
Well, aren't you just a noble-hearted fool? There will be a hell of a lot of challenges ahead of you, from different factions within the family to outside sources. Not only does CAISSA want you capable of defending yourself, but I intend to make sure everyone knows bringing you here was the right call. I refuse to let your incompetence reflect badly on CAISSA.
Okay. Interactions are going swimmingly so far. He didn't teach me quite enough to prepare me for betraying every value I've ever been taught. But I guess it's a starting point. Okay, right, she's talking about her brother. Bitterness seeped into my voice, but I figured if everyone else was allowed to be rude, I was allowed to be bitter, so there. Bleh. I'm sure Carrie and Veli will ensure the next time someone tries to kidnap me, I can just crush their skull with my mind and get away.
It would most likely be more effective to simply teach you to teleport yourself to safety without the murder aspect. Unless you wish to add something more serious than evading registration to your record.
Oh, so a mafioso cared about the murder aspect. Then again, he apparently had fought hard to keep me from being murdered. That's a good point. Was there something else you needed, or did you only want to check in? Make sure I wasn't climbing out the window and falling to my death?
I imagine the snipers would get you before you fell. Or perhaps after, since it's unlikely a fall from this height would kill you.
Ah, snipers. Of course. I should have expected that.
Most likely.
Alright. And then he gave me books. After talking about being sniped, here's some books. This time I'm not happy to see Jack. He's on my bad list. I wasn't happy to see him, though. I hadn't forgotten that he deceived me. Maybe not a direct lie, but one by omission. With the smile he gave me, it seemed like he expected I might be over it. But nope. I understood the dynamics of the situation by now. That they were following orders from a man they couldn't ignore. And I understood that Jack couldn't tell me the whole truth at the time. I was still mad. He just laughs. Given everything that happened that day, I might have still chosen to come here if he told me the whole story. And there had been time. So I glared at him and turned away, taking another sip from my water bottle.
I told you she wouldn't be happy to see you. I don't know why you bothered to come. Come on. I wanted to see how she was doing. Why? Because you're the one who dragged the little princess out of her tower and all the way to the villain's castle.
Ooh, why does Veli have such good lines?
It was better than the alternative.
Probably better than advanced calculus as well.
Hey, there's my girl. She gave me an innocent smile when I glared at her for that quip. Veli rolled his eyes at her while Jack looked confused. You won't win me over just because you can make jokes occasionally. Damn. I muttered it, but I could tell from the way her smile went wider, she heard me. And she knew that, of everyone here, she was the only one I really liked so far anyway. Get it, Carrie. Is there a reason you're here? I'm supposed to be training. So if you could leave.
Were you always this cynical?
No. But look at my current company and consider that I'm a fast learner.
That's debatable.
Don't blame me because you're a lousy teacher.
The problem is not my teaching, I can assure you.
Shall we review the evidence? I've scored in the top 10% of my classes for years. I'm an excellent student and a hard worker. So, there you go, Veli. Chew on that. Dyeing my own color? I suppose that was one way to see it. I'd been thinking of it this whole time as something like mimicking a wave I couldn't comprehend. But if it was just changing colors... Well, to be fair, I don't know how to do that either. It might help visualize the process a little better, though. Like Veli said, it was about taking something complex and interpreting it in a simpler way. Okay, so she was like on board more with the color thing early. Interesting. What am I doing here? Ooh, I had the confident trait, which means it's time to take my chance to escape. But this is not the last option. This is not my last choice for this bad ending. So you don't die here. That's good to know. The fact I was even contemplating doing as I was told frustrated me. The fact they'd made me this afraid in the short amount of time I'd been in this place. It was infuriating. Okay, I decided. I'd take the chance and explore a little. It wasn't like I was going to bolt outside and make a break for it. I would just walk around the mansion a little since I'd been limited to only a few places. And even then, only with an escort. It was a good opportunity to learn more about the layout of things. Maybe to find an exit, since I didn't even know where any were. I wasn't sure how much that would help me if and when I did choose to leave, since there were, allegedly, snipers, and I didn't know how to deal with those yet. The worst thing about my situation so far was just not knowing anything about this place and not being allowed to see it. And if anyone found me, well, my room wasn't that far from the training room, but I'd try to say I got lost on my way back. And hopefully that would work, but I'd have to do my best to not be caught. I peeked into the hall. Jack was nowhere in sight. Neither was Veli. I couldn't sense anyone nearby, but my range wasn't terribly wide at the moment, not to mention that my ability to sense anyone at all was a bit dodgy. I had to be focused on doing it, and I still miss them on occasion. That's something else I need to work on if I ever do decide to leave. I stepped into the hall and shut the door behind me, trying to be as alert as possible. My room was to the right, so I went left. I didn't know about the rest of the mansion, but the halls in this wing tended to all look alike. I would have to be careful or I really would get lost. Though I suppose that'll make my story more convincing. I made my way to the end of the corridor where it reached another junction. There was no one in either direction. Left or right? Right seemed like it might head back towards my room and deeper into CAISSA's wing, while left headed to other parts of the mansion. I chewed my lip thoughtfully, and, deciding I shouldn't stay in one place too long, headed right. The temptation to go left was strong, but it also felt more dangerous. The chances I would meet someone that didn't answer to CAISSA seemed high. I didn't think I was ready for that yet. There had to be exits in CAISSA's wing, and exploring the part of the mansion closer to where I was staying seemed more useful. So for now, I'd play it safe and at least stick closer to the areas I was familiar with. I stole down the hall trying to keep an eye out for anyone else, while also looking around to absorb everything I saw. Really, it was all just doors. I had no idea what was in any of these rooms. Were they all bedrooms? That seemed unlikely, but then we weren't on the ground floor. I knew that much. Maybe this was where Veli and the others stayed. Casting a hurried glance over my shoulder, I continued on. If I could at least find a set of stairs or a lift or something, other than the one I knew led to the dining room. Near the end of the hall was a large set of double doors. I slowed as I reached it. It was the only set of double doors I'd encountered on this floor. I doubted a convenient set of stairs was lurking behind it, but I was curious. I paused in front of it and set my hand on the knob. Then, with a sigh, I leaned my head against it. What am I even trying to do here? I needed more than this, than taking an opportunity to run around and poke into random rooms. Since my arrival, I had spent my time training. And training. To what end, I didn't really know. To prove I was useful? So I could become Crimson's newest weapon? That wasn't why I came to Delphine. I came here because I thought it was the best chance to find some normalcy again. And this was as far from normalcy as I could get. But I hadn't had a single opportunity to decide what to do. This was Crimson. Against all odds, I'd ended up in a place like this. And walking around and peeking into closed rooms wouldn't save me. My eyes flew open when someone else's hand closed around mine. I knew that was going to happen at some point. Without warning, there was a presence at my back. not touching me, but close enough I felt trapped where I stood. My heart lodged in my throat before I realized who it was. Okay, I'm like, it's either going to be Jack or CAISSA who catches her. And, Jack wants to be involved, so of course it's Jack.
What are you doing, Morgan?
Jack. I barely squeaked the word out of my mouth, which had gone dry. With a threatening growl, he spun me around, expression dark and angry.
I asked you what you're doing!
Just looking around.
You were told to wait for me at the training room.
I know. I'd never seen him like this. Genuinely angry. Or was he scared? I shoved his hands off, or tried to. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me closer as he snapped that stupid psi inhibitor back on it. They'd given it to me on my second day and told me to wear it at all times, except during training. I must have forgotten it back there. What is the problem with just looking around? No one has shown me anything in this place yet. I go from my room to the training room to the dining room. That's it. Do I not have a right to be able to walk around?
No, you don't. There isn't a person here who has any rights except the ones Caris gives them. That includes you.
So I'm just a prisoner here.
The situation here is complicated. You should know that by now.
Jack took me by the arm and started back down the hall. I stumbled along after him, trying to keep up.
You aren't an idiot, Morgan. You're capable of seeing what your situation is. What our situation is. CAISSA went out on a limb to save your life. Pulling shit like this won't help anyone. Least of all yourself. Do you know what could have happened if the wrong person found you?
Yeah, I guess I would have been murdered. He spun around again, catching me by the upper arms.
That's exactly right, Morgan. There are people here who will hurt you. We've done our best to keep you away from them, so you decided to casually waltz right to them.
You brought me here!
Not because I wanted to! And not because CAISSA wanted to either.
Yet I notice I'm still here.
You are. And do you think you're the only person who would have suffered if you got caught walking around? Do you think anything happening right now is even about you?
What does that mean? His jaw worked for a moment before he did an about face and started pulling me again.
Just follow me and stop asking questions.
You're the one asking all the questions. He said nothing to that. She's so confrontational, my goodness. When we reached my room, there was only one guard outside, a man named June, whom I had barely spoken to. He didn't look up at us as Jack yanked the door open and pushed me inside. Hey!
Don't let her out. And don't leave your post unless CAISSA personally shows up and relieves you. Got it?
Understood. The door slammed, and that was that. I drew my foot back and kicked it as hard as I could. The wood shuddered, but didn't budge. Not that I expected it to. Ow! I let out a long breath, all the adrenaline and anger evaporating in an instant. That went... well... I got to see an entire new hallway. How informative. I leaned back against the door with a huff, then slid to the floor. I remembered back to that night with Jack and CAISSA when I first arrived in Delphine. Would my situation be different if I'd chosen to go to the court instead? Or if I'd chosen Endgame? I had no idea, but somehow I suspected I'd be just as frustrated no matter what. I'd like to say Endgame wouldn't have come with the threat of murder, but considering their line of work, I didn't think it was true. Well, not murder from within, at least. I hate this. Oh, no skippy yet. I thought because we went to fade to black, but no, not yet. It was hours later before I heard anything else about what happened. And I was surprised when the person who showed up to update me wasn't Jack or Carrie, or even Veli. It was CAISSA. The look on his face when he entered my room was so cold I was almost certain the ambient temperature dropped by several degrees. I did my best to keep my expression neutral. There was a brief standoff as we stared each other down. CAISSA finally just sighed.
I admit I'm disappointed, though I suppose I shouldn't be.
I said nothing because... what was I supposed to say to that?
It may not matter to you, but Carrie is fine. Jack took full blame for your brief excursion, news of which got back to my father far too fast to be a coincidence. Anyone else would have been severely punished, maybe even killed for this slip-up. Fortunately, for some inexplicable reason, my father likes Jack, so he got away with only a few bruises.
Wait, actual bruises? I bit my lip, looking away.
Next time he will not be so lucky. Please remember that. Their lives may be worthless to you, but they are important family to me.
I never said their lives are worthless.
It's a fact that these people mean nothing to you. At least if I base it off today's actions, because everything you do impacts other people. And what you did today was careless. Selfish.
Selfish? I walked down a hallway. He strode to where I was sitting and leaned over me, planting an arm on either side of me.
You played right into the hands of whoever set this up. I hope you realize that.
Set this up?
Carrie was lured from her post, almost definitely in an attempt to give you a window to do something stupid, because that gives someone else an opening to take you out at worst. To make me and my people look bad in order to justify a more extreme punishment than what Jack got today. And in the right situation, to make a case for removing you from my care and putting you under someone else. If you care nothing about the rest of us, which I understand may be asking for a lot, then at least consider your own safety. I fought hard to keep you alive, Morgan. And every day you're here, I work to protect you, so at the very least, I don't have to deliver difficult news to your family.
Wait, my family? Is he in contact with them?
My father is not the only enemy here. And while I know my limited ability to protect you must be frustrating, I can't promise others won't try more extreme methods to encourage your growth if you're handed over to them. Please remember that.
He straightened, smoothing his vest as he turned to leave the room.
You'll be under closer watch now. Don't betray our trust again, for your own sake. Please.
He left without another word. Somehow he seemed less angry and more desperate than I would have expected, though I couldn't deny he was definitely angry. For all their warnings, I'd come out of that unscathed. Jack, on the other hand... And that was just from walking around unsupervised. If I had tried to leave... I was going to have to take the dangers of this place more seriously, that much was certain. It was clear CAISSA was at odds with his father, and now it was becoming apparent he might be at odds with the rest of Crimson too. And now I felt even less sure what tomorrow would bring. Okay. Yeah, that really went well. I was concerned about being murdered on the spot. I hoped that, if it came to that, the others would defend me. Or something. That might be expecting a lot from a group of criminals. They hadn't forgiven for my unsanctioned tour, though it couldn't even be called that, really. Things had been tense since that day. I hoped I hadn't already convinced them I wasn't worth the trouble. But it was late to be worrying about it now, wasn't it? Morgan is so blasé about just wandering around and people getting hurt. She's just like, I walked down a hallway, what's the big deal? Girl's crazy. And considering that being reprimanded seemed to involve getting smacked around, or threatened with death, my throat constricted at the memory and I shut my eyes. At least for today I'd been spared watching it or experiencing it. Or maybe he'd been worried about CAISSA's reputation. That generally seemed to be Veli's top concern. Okay. Extreme panic. I couldn't stop myself from glaring at him. Really? What the heck was wrong with this man? I really should have tried to knock this mansion on his head. Our eyes met and... he sort of smiled. I almost physically recoiled at the expression and lowered my eyes to the floor. He's like, she's got some spunk. I seriously dislike this man. Just for the record. Okay, are we gonna do stubborn? Yep. Called it. Can you get off my back, Veli? I am trying. I'm not sitting in a corner refusing to cooperate.
Then try harder.
The equipment on the back shelf rattled as I whirled on him. How do I try harder? Can you even describe what that looks like? Or are you spouting nonsense to annoy me? I'd had enough of him and his bad attitude. And CAISSA's stupid, horrible father. And Jack. And CAISSA's insufferable lack of emotion about everything.
Miss Leone, if there is anything you take away from anything said today, it should be that Espers like you and I, more than anyone, need to be able to control our emotions.
Here we go. Oh? Because your father seemed pretty interested in seeing how far he could push me to get better results.
My father is wrong, and I stand by what I said. Now calm down.
Something I noticed you didn't tell him.
Would you have done so in that moment? Again, I ask you to calm down.
I am calm! I bit the response out through gritted teeth, though it was far from the truth. There was little value in arguing with any of them. But I was on edge from having to see Caris already, and my patience with Veli was wearing thin. I should be used to his barbs and snide remarks by now, but the nastiness was getting old. And I was tired of having to be the one calm all the time.
You are not calm, and you're not helping yourself by getting worked up.
It doesn't help to get worked up, but tell me what good staying calm does.
It makes you look less like an idiot. Veli... Butterfly...
I was seconds from snapping when CAISSA took a step closer to me.
Staying calm means you don't show your weaknesses, Miss Leone. Veli antagonizes you because you're full of openings. This place is also like that. Everyone takes advantage of your weaknesses when you show them.
I wanted to ask him if that's why he never showed any emotion at all, but I bit back the response and turned away from them to try to get a hold of myself.
My father is most likely interested in showing your progress off at an event in a few weeks. He is pressing us to have you in a state where there is something significant to show off by then.
Show off? Like a trophy?
If you choose to look at it that way. Here, everything is based on a group's power, and power is related to reputation. My father is trying to ensure you add to Crimson's reputation, that's all.
Okay, I didn't think we were back, but I wanted to check. Everything at this place came back down to CAISSA's horrible father, didn't it? Like he was the only one here who mattered.
You should go rest for now. I'll see you this evening.
Okay. As always, I was shadowed by Carrie on my way back. She had taken to walking behind me again instead of next to me, ever since the day I'd wandered around unattended. Any warmth that may have started to spring up had evaporated. Ooh, oh no, that makes me sad. On one hand, I understood a little. From their perspective, I put everyone in danger. Carrie more than anyone, most likely. It felt a little like I'd lost a potential ally that day. That part, at the very least, I thought was unfortunate. Ooh, what do I do? Man, we could have tried to strike up a conversation with Carrie. That makes me sad. Stubborn. Ugh, we're just like, forget you, Carrie. But there was nothing I could do about it. There were a lot of things in Delphine I didn't understand. Things that were so twisted and strange I struggled to grasp them. Crimson was one of those things. I had thought about it a lot. Why people like Carrie ended up in places like this. Maybe they couldn't help it. Maybe they ended up here because they were trying to survive and this made it easier. I don't know. CAISSA was born into it. And there was a part of me that understood he might not be able to escape even if he wanted to. I understood their reasoning from one perspective. My disobeying made it seem like I placed very little value on their well-being. They viewed themselves as my allies here, and maybe I had difficulty seeing them as separate from everyone else here. Maybe that was my mistake. But there was one truth. Even if I sympathized with the ones just trying to get by day to day, I needed them to understand that I was doing the same. And my looking around that day was also part of that. I hadn't wanted anyone to get hurt, but I also didn't want to get hurt here. I didn't want to die here. I hated how much I was kept in the dark about things. We had to find some equilibrium somehow. Perhaps that meant my taking the first step and giving CAISSA's faction the chance to prove they were at least genuine in their insistence they wanted to help me. Okay. Okay, so he's going to train us now.
Not particularly. This isn't a request for permission, I hope you understand.
Oh, believe me, I didn't think it was. You people haven't made it a habit of asking my opinion about anything.
You have a habit of making your opinion known, regardless.
I'm curious why you think you'll be a better teacher than Veli. There we go. Can you please spare me this lecture again? I've heard it so many times already. I'm naive and somehow stupid because I grew up in a place that wasn't a seedy crime family. I am already well aware that you all see me that way. Instead of talking down to me about it constantly, I would appreciate it if maybe you'd all just answer my questions. I haven't looked down on a single person here because I'm more educated than you on history or maths or any other subject I spent years studying. And yet you say that sentence, which indicates you do, plus you just call them a seedy crime family, so I don't know, Morgan. I feel like you might look down on them. Must you all insist on looking down on me because you're more experienced in this underbelly of the world, as you call it?
If you're finished, because I don't believe I've ever called you stupid.
I'm not finished.
Miss Leone, I recognize the fact you hate us, and to a degree, I understand it. Perhaps you don't realize that for me, you were a stumbling block I had to overcome. A life my father wished to snuff out, but that I didn't want on my conscience. I did not want to see a young woman from a place like Sassalis dead at my hands, or the hands of my people.
He reached for me, startling me into silence when I had thought to respond. His fingers briefly caught a lock of my hair, sliding through the ends before he released it. Well, that got intense all of a sudden.
Even someone like me can think life is precious. But sparing you came with the cost of bringing you here. And failure would have been at the expense of someone I consider my closest friend. I could not let Jack suffer my father's anger because I wished to let you go. To you, I realize this changes nothing. However, the situation being what it is, I can't help but feel it would be wise for us to both try to make the best of it.
I sometimes think the best outcome of the situation for you is much better than the best for me. He turned away and walked to his bookcase, hands clasped behind his back as he looked at the books. His dark hair hid his face from me, so I wasn't sure what kind of expression he was making. When he started speaking again, he went back to our previous conversation as if we never went on this little rabbit trail. A silent message the discussion was over. Well, you're not giving him a lot to work with, I gotta say.
This place destroys dreams, Miss Leone. That's how it has always been for everyone pulled into it. Or anyone born into it. My advice is to give up on whatever dreams you may have had before. It's less painful that way.
Alright, dead dreams. Gotcha. Okay, I think... What am I doing here? Where am I? Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so we want to continue to fight. Confident version for the first time. I think I'd rather continue to fight for what I want than just give in because it's hard.
If what you want is to leave this mansion, then I would think learning to utilize your Psi would be the quickest avenue.
Isn't encouraging me to leave counterproductive?
Do you really believe anyone here will be able to stop you once you've realized your full potential?
I didn't know why he spoke so casually about me leaving after he'd gone to such lengths to bring me here. Though I suppose he'd made it clear that was due to his father's orders.
Of course, when you reach that point, I will endeavor to convince you to stay.
Of course you will. Because by that point I'll be ready to begin my new life of crime. He gave a scathing look at that remark.
There are other things you can do here in Delphine. Things that are bigger than studying dusty ruins on some forgotten planet. Ooh.
Huh. Things in Crimson that are bigger than that.
The son of Crimson's leader isn't all that I am, Miss Leone. I hope one day you are at least open to the possibility of that truth. Because it means Crimson's captured queen doesn't have to be all that you are. Whether you wish to believe that is up to you.
What that was supposed to mean, I didn't know. Was he really expecting I'd find meaning here? The idea of becoming powerful enough to leave this place was the only thing that had gotten me this far. Ugh, he's right about one thing at least. So we're gonna try.
You can be quite stubborn sometimes, Morgan. It's not a terrible quality, but it can be a weakness. Persistently reaching for something you'll never grasp turns it into an obsession that will keep you from moving forward.
Where I'm from, persistence is viewed as a good thing.
Is this place at all similar to where you're from?
At any rate, it seems to have its fair share of irritating know-it-alls. For a moment, his expression was caught somewhere between amused and irritated. Besides, how many times have I had to listen to one of you tell me the entire planet is equally horrible, so that makes every city on it the same?
That seems like a pointless thing to keep track of, especially in the middle of a lesson.
He let out a soft sigh, and for a moment it felt a little like the wall behind his eyes faded. Nope, not yet. He hesitated, as if unsure if he should say more. At some point, he closed the short distance between us. I wasn't even sure when. Nope, not yet. The atmosphere between us shifted somehow, and strangely it felt like I was seeing him for the first time. And not some emotionless mask. There was something vulnerable in his expression I hadn't seen before. Okay, there we go. Now it registered. You can't possibly control the entire nanosystem. Surely there are limits to your range, your sphere.
Well done. I'm pleased that some of what I'm teaching is sinking in. And yes, you're correct. The power and scope of my abilities are limited, as with every other Esper. But there might be a way to take the power of a single king and rule the world.
A way for one king with limited range to control the entire planet? How could... The planetary AI. If you can control technology, you could take control of that too, couldn't you?
One assumes.
But the AI is dormant.
Dormant, but not destroyed.
Some of the history around the AI is... vague, so I don't know all the details. But if it's that easy, why haven't you done it?
The control hubs were destroyed during the Civil War, or directly after, and the mainframe's physical location was lost to most. With a limited sphere, it is impossible to access something that far away.
Lost to most, but not all.
The mainframe's location, Avalon, as Endgame calls it, is somewhere in the Twilight Wastes. We know that much.
Once a sprawling above-ground complex that housed the mainframe and data centers for the planetary AI, Avalon is now entirely underground and houses a much smaller active complex. Much of the above-ground area was destroyed in the Thlosan War long before human arrival. The little that remained was intentionally destroyed during the colonist civil war in order to obscure Avalon's location. It was to this place that humans first arrived and first met King, the AI, though their arrival there was somewhat coincidental as they weren't aware of the significance of the structure when they landed. It is located deep in the Twilight Wastes, and few are still aware of its exact location, including some leaders of the Nomos group, as well as Magnus Ulrich. But the Wastes are neutral territory, and no one but the Nomos are allowed there. The Nomos are a group of people that live in the Twilight Wastes, mostly on the day side of the Infinity Sea, though there are a few cities on the night side of the sea. The Nomos originate from a group of colonists who were isolated in the Twilight Wastes during the time of the Civil War. They were studying several important remnants of Thlosan society and exploring the possibility that not all Thlosans dwelled in the domes, and there were several small cities that had cropped up in the region by the time the war was in full swing. They ended up largely cut off from the rest of Arcalian society during the time of the war, having to survive on their own and set up their own self-contained colony. By the time the war ended and Endgame had become a dominant force in planetary politics, the Wastes were deemed off-limits and the Nomos remained isolated. Through the centuries, the population has grown, and there are now much larger cities in various places, as well as numerous smaller settlements. Like the rest of the Earth colonists, the Nomos have carved out a place for themselves in Arcalis. Many of them travel the way studying the planet and the remnants left behind by the Thlossans, Seneccans, and Arrayans. Espers are relatively rare among the Nomos, but have become more common in the last few decades thanks to the so-called fairy phenomenon. There is also a decent-sized population of neo-humans among them, and it's not uncommon for neo-humans leaving Erebos, I think, to settle in one of the Nomos cities. Though the Nomos tend to avoid contact with the domes, wanting to keep the secrets of the Twilight Wastes as secrets, there are some that have trade dealings with smaller, isolated domes like Asteri and Nissa. Or Nyssa. Nyssa? Nissa? Who knows? I don't.
And Endgame zealously protects their sovereignty. I wonder why that is.
You think Endgame knows the location of the planetary AI, or at least that they believe the Nomos know it.
Correct.
More importantly, you seem to have given this a disturbing amount of thought. Is this the game everyone's playing? Try to figure out where the planetary AI is? Have a king on hand that can take control?
It's the game many people wish to play, if they could.
Are we back? Yeah, we are back now. Okay, man, we're getting so much info. Okay, we're being cautious this time. We don't care about Veli. He's a meanie. What happened? Veli was overtaken by a coughing spell that left him doubled over in pain. Broken rib. That was the first thought that came to mind, though I was no doctor.
Veli was provoked by another member of the family and got into a fight.
And lost? How does a queen rank lose in a fight?
He won, Butterfly. This is his punishment. Big Boss wasn't happy with him.
Caris did this to him?
I've told you not to fight with my father's men. You know he hates this sort of infighting.
Sorry, Kay.
What about you? Jack grinned, rubbing the side of his face with a chuckle.
Oh, I just took a couple to the face, trying to pull Veli off the other guy before he killed him or something.
Good grief. After a moment's hesitation, I left the door and joined CAISSA by the sofa. I guess being a high-ranked Esper doesn't save you from everything. Veli half laughed and half coughed at that.
Doesn't save you from much at all.
So these kinds of fights are common here?
Tensions run high sometimes, and everyone has to blow off some steam here and there.
Tensions are especially high now that you're here and CAISSA's having to babysit you.
Ah, so this is my fault.
No one said that, Butterfly.
I think that's exactly what he was saying. Do you have something I can use to clean him up?
We've sent for Celeste, Kay. Kara's kind of implied we shouldn't, but, well... I figured you'd tell me to anyway.
And how long will it take for her to get here?
I don't know. It's an hour drive, but we called her a while ago.
So we're just going to let Veli bleed on the sofa until then?
I have a small emergency kit. Wait here.
Veli was trying not to show it, but as I knelt beside him to get a closer look at his face, it was obvious how much pain he was in. You can't tell me you didn't know this would happen if you got into a fight.
I'm getting lectured by you now. And here I didn't think I could sink lower.
I'm just saying. That's how this place is. Everyone keeps telling me that. And yet, here you are.
Those bastards just piss me off when they talk about CAISSA like...
He broke off when another coughing spasm hit him. Okay, try not to talk. At this rate, you're going to puncture a lung, if you haven't already.
Here. This should have what you need to at least deal with the injuries on his face.
I took the small box from him and started rifling through it for what I needed. Okay, there we go. Butterfly's back. So that nickname was making a comeback then. Jack had dropped it for a long time. Then again, maybe getting hit in the head a few times made him forget. Or else he thought I'd forgiven him enough I wouldn't mind. Just a brief comment on Butterfly. Well, we'd already had this talk that day I went to explore the mansion a little. I guess it was still all going on behind the scenes out of sight. And this is what they dealt with where I couldn't see it. Okay. We made some progress. You keep defying my expectations. It makes me a little curious.
And what are your expectations of me? No. I suppose I can imagine.
I'm sure you had expectations of me as well, based on my background.
I suppose I did. Though yours seems significantly more harsh than mine. But not without reason.
You think so? Everyone here has treated me like I have something to feel guilty over for being unaccustomed to all this. Or at all distressed by it. For not growing up in some dark corner of Delphine, experiencing all the terrible things that lurk there.
I suppose you must hate me for bringing you here.
I chose to come here, CAISSA. I've been angry at some of what's happened. The lack of explanations, the restrictions. But anger and hate aren't the same thing. I'm angry that I have to be here. I think that's a normal reaction. And it's not entirely your fault.
I, too, have been angry at my circumstances. At having to be in this place.
Really?
Did you think I enjoyed it?
Okay, there we go. Now we're back.
Miss Leone, it may come as a shock to you, but we're not told everything. I don't know for certain where you're going. Only that you're leaving the mansion.
Can you at least tell me if everything's okay? Okay, so it was like a colder interaction with Carrie, I guess. I followed her down the corridor, barely keeping the smile off my face.
You look pleased.
Wouldn't you be? I've been cooped up for weeks. Wake up, breakfast alone, training, more training, lunch, also usually alone, dinner in a quiet, tense dining room. I've been going stir-crazy.
Hopefully today's outing will help with that.
I just wish I knew where we were going.
I'm sure Mr. CAISSA will tell you soon enough.
Okay, then he came and found us.
Looking forward to it.
A little. Though, I guess it somewhat depends on where we're going.
I'll be able to explain in the car. We'll be back before evening. But there's always someone listening here. For now.
His voice dropped to a low murmur. I'm gonna just grab your hand real quick. Don't panic. Probably not affectionate this time. I'm just gonna go on a wild guess here. Da, da, da. Yep, stubborn. Called it.
And that's what I'm a part of now.
I'm trying to show you there's more than just that. Please believe me when I say some of us are trying to create something more than a world built on fear.
I could appreciate that, and could appreciate what he was trying to say, but you've used the threat of your father to keep me in line this entire time, you know? His face hardened when I said that, lips drawing into a thin line.
That was not a threat. And it was not meant to keep you in line. It was meant to keep you alive. My father is dangerous. And not just for you. Surely you realize this by now. Would you have had me not warn you at all? Knowing it would put you at risk, and others?
No, of course not. I just wish the warnings had been less cryptic. I've spent a lot of time here scared of everything, including you.
I know. Though I hope that it's beginning to change.
I don't know yet. It was true I was beginning to learn how little kindness was rewarded at the mansion, including CAISSA's kindness. But that didn't mean my doubts were going to disappear. I couldn't help but wonder if it was even possible for someone who grew up in this environment to enact true change. How much of this atmosphere of fear and force became ingrained? How much of the change he was trying to create would come through fear and force because that was all he knew? Those were the thoughts going through my mind as we drove. Yet somehow he managed to pull himself away and take me by the elbow to lead me to a quieter spot, waving the others away, at least momentarily. I think Rory would have been here at this point, but he's gone now.
I apologize for their enthusiasm. I haven't been here in a while.
They're all really attached, aren't they?
People here always cling to each other for support, comfort. And they get attached to anyone who seems to want to help. Because that's a very rare thing here. Many of them come from unfortunate backgrounds. Poverty, crime, even human experimentation.
What? That's awful. How is that even allowed?
It isn't allowed. They simply don't get caught. Or worse, the ones doing it are the ones in charge.
That's horrific.
That's why this place is a sanctuary. Not just to people from Delphine, but all over. There's a bishop from... well, perhaps that's for another time. The point is that people gather here because it's safe, to the best of our ability to make it so.
And it's a place you created. There we go. Should I look like everything is fine when people are debating if I even belong here?
I didn't think Veli's opinion mattered to you that much.
It doesn't matter to me. It's just irritating.
If it didn't matter, you wouldn't be irritated.
There are plenty of trivial things that are annoying. He laughed at that.
I guess you're right. So, you want a tour of the place? Not that there's much to see.
Probably not affectionate, right? Yep, going with Jack. It's fine. Okay, we've got another chunk done. Thank you for bringing me here today. And I guess I'm sorry too. For, I don't know, thinking the worst of you, I suppose.
In some ways, I'm used to it.
Well, that being said, it seemed like they'd finally forgiven my little exploration attempt. Hooray! At any rate, I wasn't getting the cold shoulder for it anymore. Maybe CAISSA had finally realized if he wanted trust, he would have to give it. Maybe? One can hope. And you say I'm the one who's like Jack.
That's a rather significant insult coming from you, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I take it I should be offended.
Yes.
I'll make a note of it. If he's such a negative influence on us both, I may need to address it.
I'm sure he'll love that. It always comes back to Jack in the end. Even if he was a nice one in the family, it was the family that was the problem. in so many ways. And though I had agreed to help him with his goals I respected, I just needed to stay firmly unattached. That was the safest course of action. I could respect him now that I knew more about him. I could even potentially consider him a friend. But more than that it was a bad plan, for sure. She talked herself out of it. Didn't even give herself a chance. I feel like we're gonna go stubborn. Yep, we're going stubborn. The issue is that I'm not getting engaged to Crimson's heir.
Is the thought of marrying me that odious?
No, that's not what I meant.
Then please do elaborate.
It's not you, CAISSA. It's, no offense, your family. Specifically your father, who kind of wanted me dead at one point. If he's trying to tie me down, should I just sit back and let him do it?
Then what would you have me do?
Call it off? Refuse to go along with it?
Do you believe I have the power to do that?
Your father can't possibly exert that much control over what goes on here. To the point of controlling your relationships?
My father controls everything in this family, Morgan.
I dragged my hands through my hair. I knew that was true. I knew it, but...
I didn't realize you would be this distraught over it. I thought we had... No. Never mind.
Oh, that stings. He's like, I kind of like you, and she's like 5 minutes ago. I was like, grudgingly maybe a friend, but beyond that, no, nope.
In the end, we have no choice but to go along with it for now. A fake engagement means nothing anyway. We should be grateful, at the very least, you are engaged to me, not him.
Was there a chance he'd do that?
Nothing is beyond him, Morgan. Nothing.
That was an even more terrifying thought. You thought about it later, though, girl, on another lifetime, so don't give me that. You thought about it. I suppose I should have expected this.
I should have as well.
So, by tomorrow, this engagement will be plastered everywhere. The Fianchetto heir getting married is a big deal, isn't it?
It is, I'm afraid. Even so. I don't know what my father is doing by announcing to everyone that you're here. This is too soon. Unless he's assuming it's already leaked to all the other factions where you landed. But based on our information, not everyone has worked it out yet.
I guess it's too much to assume you could just ask him.
Yes, it is.
Unfortunately, there's nothing we can gain by worrying about it now.
Perhaps, but there is something to be gained by discerning his motives.
I don't think I can help with that. Your father is well beyond my ability to comprehend.
I know. I just wanted you to be prepared.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay.
You ready for this?
I am. At any rate, this is a little better than spending another evening eating alone in my room.
I've been good about clearing my evening schedule to have dinner with you.
Fairly good.
Don't forget who will be at this dinner. Don't leave my side tonight.
I won't. I'm not quite that reckless.
Sometimes I wonder.
Judging by your choices so far, Morgan. Ooh, she just like yelled it out. Oh man. Ooh, she's not handling this nearly as well. What a disgusting old man. What did that even mean?
You'll find that many of my father's associates are like him.
Your father... I bit back what I wanted to say, which was that his father had poor taste in friends and clothes. But I kept it to myself. Barely. Jack's ready to get rid of him. Just give the word. Okay, so now she knows more about Winter, so she can be like, I don't think he's an Esper, but this time she's like, no, I know for sure. No, the fade is from a nano-overgrowth incident, if that's what you were wondering about. At least that's what Reuben told me.
Reuben? Ah, his real name, then.
Yes.
But to think that despite my changing the records, he tracked you here. That's impressive.
Okay. Probably gonna push him away. Yep. No smoochy smooches this time. Well, he had said it was because someone was watching, but it was better to not get too carried away. And the insistent pressure of his lips on mine was encouraging me to do just that. So I permitted the kiss to go on for a second longer before I gently pushed back against his chest. He separated from me, looking startled for a moment. Poor CAISSA. I looked up at him, an abashed smile on my face, hoping he wasn't offended. But I didn't trust my heart in this moment. I swallowed hard and couldn't quite keep one of my hands from toying with the ends of the ponytail draped over his shoulder. Morgan, please. This might not be a good place for this sort of thing. I spoke a little louder than necessary in case the spy was still lurking nearby. It was difficult to keep my gaze on his face and not look overtly over his shoulder to where the intruder was.
Ah.
I wound one of his curls around my finger, giving it a slight tug. Girl, please. What would people say if they saw the Fianchetto heir in a situation like this?
They would say the Fianchetto heir is a very, very lucky man.
His features relaxed into a calm smile. His eyes darted away from mine for a split second, and I wondered if he was checking on the spy, who probably needs to get a room.
We can do that. I live here, after all. There are many, many rooms available.
He caught my hand and pressed a kiss to my fingertips. My heart gave an anxious flutter at the heat of his breath against my hand. Color crept to my face when he looked at me again.
But you're right, of course.
I always am. He scoffed when I said that, but he stood and offered me his hand.
We'll stop back by the party and tell my father we intend to retire then.
I took his hand and stood, slipping my shoes back on. My heart was still pounding. I hadn't expected a kiss, but of course that sort of thing would come with pretending to be engaged. It still startled me how natural it had felt, and that was why it was best to end it. I couldn't let myself get wrapped up in something like that. That's just crazy. If I wasn't careful, I would lose track of what our goals were. CAISSA and I were silent as we headed back to the ballroom, and I repeated to myself that I was not allowed to fall for him. I was beginning to think the mantra was losing meaning. Quite possibly. I wonder if that was what your father had in mind. I can't imagine it was necessary to do this entire engagement to solidify my ties to the family. There were other ways to do that.
I don't think my father would choose to do something that benefits me like that.
But he's already done it. Don't you think there are too many side benefits for you for it to be incidental? Your father doesn't strike me as being that careless.
But that's...
Well, I'm just a newcomer here, so I could be wrong, of course. But that's how it seems to me. A faint, sad smile crept over his face.
Perhaps you're right. You always help me see things in novel ways.
I don't know that I always do it.
You do. Thank you for this evening. For cooperating.
That makes it sound more like a business transaction. I want to help you. I hope you realize that. I set a hand on his chest, smiling. CAISSA returned the smile, covering my hand with his own.
I'm glad to hear it.
He squeezed my hand and released it, stepping away from me.
I should let you retire. We'll be resuming our normal training schedule tomorrow, and I'm sure you need to rest.
I'll see you then.
Likewise. Good night, Morgan.
Same to you. I retreated to my room and went to flop on the bed with an exhausted groan. I rolled over and stared at the ceiling. This thing growing between CAISSA and I didn't think I could deny my side of it any longer. Oh no, she fell again! I didn't know what it was yet, and I didn't know if he was just lonely, or if I was just lonely, or two lonely people, you know, in a place where they felt trapped and sometimes hopeless. It was natural to turn to each other for comfort. But I might be starting to develop feelings for him. Or, well, I didn't think might was the right word. One part of me said that loneliness wasn't a good reason to fall for someone. Another part of me was adamant that loneliness was obviously a valid reason to fall in love. That was the whole point of relationships. Because loneliness was terrible. And I couldn't even argue that I hadn't come here for this. Because people rarely did things just to fall in love. How many times in life did things happen to us without us intending for them to? I covered my eyes with my arm and groaned. What do I do now? Okay, we made it to chapter 9. Probably can skip again now. Okay, got a little bit further. It worries me you're so good at chokeholds, I hope you realize.
Why should it? I had to learn to defend myself, just as you're doing now. There's nothing strange about that, given the environment in which I grew up.
I suppose that's true.
Did you assume I learned it because I'm a criminal?
I haven't thought of you as just a criminal in a long time, CAISSA.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well, that's nice. We made a little bit of progress. I took a long sip of water. Now that my Psi was making rapid improvements, CAISSA decided it was time to focus on my physical self-defense. Alright, we can skip again a bit. The air between us was heavy with sudden tension. I was already getting used to this. There were so many unspoken feelings, unspoken wants. The last few days had found us in several moments similar to this, where I expected him to kiss me again, but he never did. Which told me the hesitation and fear of committing to this was something he was battling as well. At this point, it was like a waiting game. Which one of us would give in first? No, not yet. CAISSA?
Okay,
and then there's the detective.
It's not that I think you're lying. What happened when you met him?
Right, this is going to be different now because Morgan actually talked to Ruben. He wanted to ask questions about that man that had attacked me. I was supposed to go to an interview later that afternoon, but I guess he was eager to talk to me. We had brunch, and we talked about what happened. I saw his jaw working when I said that. His expression was dark, annoyed. He told me he was going to inform me when they found the attacker. I would imagine he checked in at some point, then realized something happened when I didn't respond.
If he doesn't even know you, why is he so determined to find you?
I assume because he's a detective. That's what he does. Okay, we're back. A little bit of jealous CAISSA came out there for just a smidge, just a little bit. Okay, this time we're doing the stubborn one. I wasn't sure how to answer that question. If given the opportunity, would I get away from his father? Yes. But there were other things to consider. It wasn't that easy a decision. It's not a choice for me to make so casually, is it? If I left, people here would suffer. You, Jack, Carrie, or June. Someone would take the blame for what I assume would be framed as an escape. And I can't live with that.
You don't have to put our needs above your own, Morgan. I don't want you to do that, or to make you feel you should. Not now.
CAISSA, what even is there to go back to anyway? Endgame? I can't see myself joining them.
So you would stay simply because there are no better options?
I didn't like how it sounded when he said it that way. I don't think that's it either. I feel a little caught between worlds, to be honest. Because of the laws there, I can't continue with my life like nothing happened. But Endgame is not the place for me. It's hard for me to say I fit in here either, if I'm being honest. So, where does an interplanetary archaeologist go when she finds out she's a high-ranking Esper?
You are more than just a high-ranking Esper here. More than that to me. That's why I would find a way to let you go back if...
I can't go back even if I wanted to. And I'm not sure I want to.
You aren't.
It isn't like you would go with me, right? Aww. For a split second, he looked surprised. Then he closed his eyes and let out a soft, regretful sigh.
No. There's no way I could do that.
Even if there was some way I could leave and no one would need to suffer, I don't think I could walk away like nothing I've experienced here and no one I've met here matters to me.
Perhaps I shouldn't have asked something like this so suddenly.
Okay. That was an interesting variation of that choice. That conversation. What is one way to put it? Oh, picking up Kay's worst traits. I suppose that's one way to put it.
Didn't think I'd catch you two like that, honestly.
Catch us? It's not as if we were sneaking around doing something wrong.
Well, I guess that's true enough. The two of you have been less than subtle with this whole thing since the party.
Jack, I'm sorry, but is there a reason I need to talk to you, of all people, about this?
Is there someone else you'd rather discuss it with?
I'm not sure why I have to discuss it with anyone.
I guess you're right. Hey, can I ask you a question, Morgan?
Of course. Okay. Were you listening in our conversation before? Because there was no other way Jack would bring up this kind of topic. Especially not after CAISSA had just finished asking me if I would go home if given the chance.
I overheard some of it, yes.
And that's why you're asking if I was happy there? I'm not sure what that has to do with anything.
Humor me.
I don't know, really. Okay. He was right, though. We had been hesitating for too long. And the questions and uncertainties wouldn't go away. For some of them, there were no answers. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for clarity, to stop holding back, just as he said. I could make the first move. But, for now, we'll just wait on that and see if that actually happens or if we get to a bad ending first. He still didn't answer, and that sounded more like a shower than a sink. Ah, she's aware this time. Being stubborn and confident really got her thinking like, wait, that sounds like a shower. The door was ajar, but I didn't want to risk it, so I sat on the edge of his bed instead. He was probably having a shower after our training session earlier. Letting out a sigh, I flopped back on his bed as my mind went back to what I'd been working on with Carrie and June earlier. Man, I would not have the guts to just, like, casually sit on his bed and lie back. I'm like, there's some nice chairs, a couch, just, like, casually lying on his bed. I'm not that bold. There were a lot of things to consider, but it was an exciting subject. Not my chosen career field, but still exciting.
Comfortable?
I propped myself up on my elbows and looked his way, my mouth going dry when I saw him standing there wrapped in a towel with water still dripping from his hair. I stood and spun around, face going hot. CAISSA!
Oh? Bothered by this?
I'm not bothered by it. I just didn't expect you to walk out half-dressed.
You were much less concerned with me seeing you in almost as little.
Would you prefer I stare at you then?
You could at least be somewhat appreciative.
I don't recall you being appreciative the first time you walked in on me half-dressed.
Oh, I was. It just felt rude to dwell on it, so I did my absolute best to clear it from my mind.
Then I'll have to do the same. So witty, you two. He chuckled as he disappeared into the closet. I flopped back on the bed. This girl, keeping my back to that part of the room just in case.
Morgan, I'm intrigued by the ideas you mentioned earlier. Have you had a chance to look into it?
I turned towards the closet as he spoke, and after a moment stood and moved a little closer as I answered him. Okay.
I don't want anything to happen to you while I'm gone.
Nothing is going to happen to me.
Morgan, I hope you realize you are someone very important to me.
And I hope you realize, despite everything, you and the people here mean a lot to me too. Which is why I also want to be sure you're going to be safe wherever you're going.
I'll have Veli. I may not have known him as long as Jack, but when it comes to raw power, there's no comparison. But between Jack, Carrie, and June, I have confidence you'll be alright.
I'm technically stronger than all three, just so you're aware.
You will be. But you're still learning. And you're not quite as aware of your surroundings as the others. Sometimes it worries me a little.
Not used to having to watch my back all the time, I'll admit.
Hence my having someone do it for you.
I'm learning.
I know.
He leaned in a little hesitantly to brush his lips against mine. It was a tentative gesture, like he wasn't sure how I'd react. He was holding back still, a feeling punctuated by him letting out a long, shaky breath before resting his forehead against mine for a space. I leaned up and kissed him again a little firmer than he had, letting only a little heat through. Enough for him to hopefully realize I felt something for him. A soft, whispering groan escaped him, like he hadn't expected me to reciprocate. When I pulled away, I closed my eyes and leaned into him, extremely conscious of his lack of shirt. Heat was radiating from him, seeping into me as he wrapped his arms around my shoulders.
Morgan,
He never finished whatever he was going to say. He pulled a short distance away, glaring off to my left shoulder.
Jack, what do you want?
I realized he'd gotten a message of some kind. He sighed and dragged a hand through his still damp hair.
Fine. Tell Father I'll be there in a moment. I should go, and I'm not sure whether I'll see you again before I leave.
Okay, there we go. Now we're caught up. What's not happening? Oh, Caris wants to talk to you. Yeah, I don't feel like it. That's not happening. I'm not meeting with Caris Fianchetto, and definitely not alone.
You think you're going to get a choice? That you're going to tell him no?
I don't want to meet with him. And why are you going along with it like it's not a big deal? Didn't CAISSA leave him here to protect me?
Look, Caris tells me things. He can't talk to CAISSA, so I'm the one he talks to.
Okay, we're back. That was an interesting segue. What are we not worried about? Okay, about him harming us. I'm not worried. Like I said, I've spent the last 2 months learning to defend myself. He paused and glanced my way, more amused than anything, going by the look on his face.
I am pleased to hear it. You were a bit like a frightened mouse when you first arrived, and the frightened mice don't last long here.
So I keep being told.
Only because it's true.
Okay. Okay, we're not doing cautious, because that's stuck. Oh, we're doing the neutral one this time. Okay. I still wasn't sure what Caris was aiming for, nor was I sure I trusted him. CAISSA didn't. So why did I have to discuss my feelings with him when even CAISSA and I hadn't had a proper talk about it? It was frustrating, and this entire conversation was strange. This confession, or whatever it was. I care about CAISSA, obviously. I haven't known him long, and I don't think I can say a word like love so soon. But I do care about him a great deal.
I see. I appreciate your candor. It's a good quality to have sometimes. It's enough that you care for him.
Okay, not yet.
He needs more people who care about him by his side, especially when those people can also protect him. I protect him where I can, but I can't always be open with affection.
Why not? You're his father.
I'm sure you struggle to understand, coming from a place where your parents were unlikely to have concerns for your safety if they loved you too much. But for my sons, my love is nothing but a target. I learned that lesson well with Deimos. And by the time I learned of CAISSA, I knew he'd be better off if others perceived a wall between us. If they questioned how much hurting him would in turn hurt me.
So you distanced yourself so people wouldn't be tempted to hurt him to get to you? CAISSA had also expressed to me concern that people would use me to get at him. That's the sort of place this is, I guess.
It is exactly the sort of place this is.
Then why not leave it, is what I wanted to ask. But I already knew. You didn't just leave a life like this one. Okay. Another nice alternate conversation with Dad. I told him the truth.
Which is?
That I very much care about you. His lips pursed and looked for all the world like he was pouting.
That isn't as enthusiastic an answer as I would like.
I said it with much enthusiasm, I promise.
I suppose it'll have to do then. And I hope you know I very much care for you as well.
He frowned and pulled away, a line forming between his brows as he stared down at me.
No, that isn't what I wish to say. I'm not used to using words like love. But this feeling I have is something I haven't felt for anyone before. Something I didn't expect to feel for you either. I'm not sure what name I would pin on it, and I don't think it matters. What I can say for certain is that regardless of the circumstance that brought us together, I am glad you're here, Morgan. I'm glad to have met you.
So am I. I shut my eyes and leaned into him. I could say that with certainty at this point. I was glad I had met him. CAISSA pulled me closer, embracing me tightly. We stood there like that for a while, reveling in our newfound closeness. Aw. That was kind of sweet, where he's like, I very much care for you. No, you know what? I'm gonna own up. Might be love, whatever this is, it's unique to you. That was very cute. And now Veli. Oh, Veli, what do I do with you? I'm being stubborn, which I think we've done before, so we can skip that.
You can see here that energy is rationed out per district. We're also taxed biannually on consumption. Well, they try to tax us. Half the cities in this dump are drowning in debt. They shorten our day cycles, implement rations on food and water where they can get away with it. Nothing helps. Anyway, this breaks everything down for you.
She handed me a display, and I looked it over, expression grim. Setting aside the issues with the dome's climate, air quality is also less of a priority than I expected.
Nothing here is a priority for the government. We're lucky we have air at all.
I handed the display back to her with a sigh. The situation here was worse than I thought. Maybe I'd felt optimistic because people were living, almost happily it seemed. Okay, I was trying to remember, because this all seems familiar, but I think the difference is that Rory was here, or he showed up at some point, but he won't be doing that this time. But that turned out to not mean much. One rooftop garden wouldn't change anything, and that was if we could get it going. We'd been interrupted while up on the roof, and now CAISSA and Jack had run off somewhere. CAISSA was needed elsewhere. I had a feeling that was a common occurrence when he was here. That left me to work out some of the details with other people. Celeste was the closest thing to a proper scientist in the court, or this part of it anyway, and all her learning came from self-study. She was more focused in medicine as well. I had to admire the tenacity of someone who wanted to learn medicine in this place and found a way to do it on their own. It seemed like so many simply didn't have the time or ability to take on that challenge. But it was so frustrating that it even was a challenge, and the skill shortage it caused was concerning.
What are you thinking about so hard over there?
Nothing much. Just that a lot of what we want to do will require knowledge that isn't readily available here. Most people here haven't had time to learn any specialized skills. That may slow down the process.
We're capable of learning, you know, even without all your nano enhancements.
Of course you are. But learning takes time. That's my point. And I wonder who will train them. CAISSA should give more thought to the education system. There were tons of kids in the court who weren't in school. I wonder if he could tap into New Albion's systems and pull something together. A proper school and education system would go a long way to helping with the skills shortage. At least in the future.
Where are you going to find teachers for things like that? The AI teachers in New Albion aren't something we can just set up here. And unsanctioned AI is one thing the government cares a hell of a lot about.
The AI teachers aren't very advanced anyway, which is why so many people scramble for the higher tiers. Live teachers will always be superior. And we'll find them. I'll be one if I have to.
You have a lot of big ideas. But you know, people here can barely get by from day to day. They don't think about things like education or gardens. They think about food and shelter, and avoiding getting caught in dangerous situations on the streets.
My big ideas are meant to make all of that easier. I know it's difficult to consider the future when you're just trying to get through today. But that's what I'm here for. I'm not asking anyone else to think about the future. Neither is CAISSA. We're saying we're going to work on that. So everyone else can keep making it from day to day, with each day getting better than the one before.
I can't imagine growing up in a place that encourages that level of optimism.
I can't imagine growing up in one that stifles it. She studied my face a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she laughed. It was a soft, almost sad sound trying to puff itself up with false bravado.
Fair enough. I guess that, at any rate, it'll be interesting to see you try to make all this work.
I'm sure it'll be even more interesting to see it succeed. I'm not in the habit of failing.
I look forward to it, newbie queen.
She stood and stretched, letting out a soft groan as she twisted from side to side.
Well, for now, that's about all we can discuss, I guess. Next steps are up to you and CAISSA.
I'm not sure when he'll be back.
Me either. I got stuff to take care of, so I'm going down.
She barely spared a nod as she left. With CAISSA gone, I had nothing else to do, so I ended up following Celeste back downstairs. We don't have Rory teaching this time. That's very sad. Okay, most definitely not going affectionate. I can guess that. We're going analytical this time. Okay. What you say isn't entirely false. It's not entirely accurate either, though. I chose to come here, and I had specific reasons for doing it. Those reasons haven't changed. Winter looked aghast.
Morgan, do you understand your situation? You've been recruited by the most violent people on the planet.
Things aren't always as they seem, Detective. I haven't been recruited by Crimson, and I'm not sure what you're even doing here. Surely you're not here officially. They would never allow 2 detectives from the Triad to come to Delphine for the sake of 1 citizen.
Well, that's true. You could think of it as... we're here... unofficially.
You don't say. Is this... No, not yet.
Morgan, we've come here to take you home. I know you've been here for weeks, and these people have convinced you that you belong with them. You've probably started to sympathize.
I held up a hand to stop him, already seeing where he was going with this. I appreciate the concern, but if you're going to try to apply cut-and-dry standards to my situation, you're doomed to fail. This isn't a cut-and-dry situation. It never was. In fact, when Espers are involved, I doubt it ever is. There are so many elements at play. My being a queen rank and having people coming after me to kill me being at the top of the list. My not wanting to join Endgame, which is what's waiting for me in New Albion, is next. The fact that Endgame grabbed me off the street while I was screaming for help did not endear them to me. And there's the complex relationship between Crimson and the court, which you seem at least somewhat aware of if you think I've been recruited by the most violent people on the planet, yet you're also here.
I don't know about complex. We just heard the court is an arm of Crimson, and...
That would be incorrect. Okay, I think we're back. There we go. You can't make me leave, Winter. Okay, we're actually getting a lot farther into this route than I thought we would for a bad ending, but here we go.
Look who's awake!
She was coming up the stairs towards me, expression darker than usual. I never really slept.
How's the head?
Better. The headache has faded.
Good.
What's been going on the last few hours? Who are all these people?
Members of the court. Most of them live in the area around here.
They look scared.
They are.
She started back down the last flight of stairs, a quick jerk of her head indicating I should follow.
Looks like a lot of shitty rumors are going around. Saying Crimson has fallen and stupid crap like that. It's lies, and everyone knows it. But we're still on edge. Many people on the outside assume we're some kind of branch of Crimson, and that we had backing from them in some way. It's not true, of course. Our only actual connection to Crimson is CAISSA. It's not like we're related to them otherwise, but the truth doesn't matter. What matters is that some people think we've lost some sort of critical support we had. There have been some idiots trying to take advantage of it.
Okay. Are we back? No, okay. So Rory was here somewhere. Next to us. I wish we'd been at the mansion instead of here. We might have somehow been able to stop...
You'd have been caught up in it, that's all. Look, Morgan, this is new for you, but we've dealt with crisis before. And let me tell you something about this kind of thing. It's a hell of a lot easier to deal with when you're on the outside looking in at it instead of fighting your way out. Be glad you're here. We don't even know what happened yet, but if they get into trouble, you're way more useful to them out here than in there with them. You got that?
Yeah.
We got an injury here! Where's Celeste?
She muttered the expletive under her breath as she pushed past. After a moment of hesitation, I followed her. Okay. But how did rumors like that spread so fast? There weren't a ton of people that could connect the Fianchettos and Crimson. Even if the attack on the mansion was being reported, most shouldn't know that meant anything for Crimson. So for there to be rumors Crimson had fallen because the Fianchetto mansion was attacked, it had to mean someone was deliberately spreading information to destabilize the situation. That's what it felt like, anyway. If this was a betrayal from within the group, what was their purpose? Completely destroying the group would cause an upset in the balance of power on this side. The four families were locked in a delicate balance with one another. If one crumbled, it wasn't like things would be easy for the others. Too many would scramble to fill the void left by Crimson. The violence and chaos would be staggering. A takeover would be more likely, but why the rumors that Crimson was done for? People were so disgusting sometimes. Truly, I tried to believe in the best of human nature, but seeing how other groups tried to swoop in and overrun the court, scrabbling for territory, and they didn't care who was hurt. People like this old man were just in the way, weren't they? What even was there here that was so precious? The court was full of refugees who were doing their best to scrape out a life here. It wasn't like there were resources. Or... That thought trailed off. Resources. I looked around the room. Everyone here was an Esper, almost. This and other areas that belonged to the court had a disproportionately high number of Espers to begin with. There were factions involved in human experimentation. CAISSA had mentioned this in the past. If the court was thrown into chaos and weakened by repeated attacks because people believed they'd lost the support of Crimson, was it possible the rumors of Crimson's demise were being overblown for that reason? Okay. How could a rumor like Crimson has fallen spread so fast here? Don't you think it's a little strange that people are assuming Crimson is gone for good already?
Seems like someone's being pretty deliberate about planting that seed around, doesn't it?
I thought that as well.
Well, it was obvious that whoever made this move from the inside had the backing of some other faction. It would take someone huge to bring down a beast like Crimson. And even if Crimson isn't dead yet, it would take someone huge to organize an attack on that mansion and deal with the fallout. The immediate problem to deal with is the groups attacking the edges of our area. We can't do much about the Crimson situation until we establish our position here. Crimson's not our problem, but CAISSA is. Anyway, the bastards will try to converge on this spot if they're serious about taking over. Everyone knows this is the heart of the court.
Then let them come here. It'll be easier to deal with if they come to us. All we have to do is be ready. Nope.
We?
Yes. We. I'm not interested in another conversation about whether I belong here, so you can stop right there if that's where you're going with it. Whether or not I belong, I'm here.
Calm down. I wasn't going to question whether you belong. I guess I was a little surprised, that's all. I won't complain that a queen rank is throwing in with us, believe me.
So what do we expect when they show up?
You can expect them to come in with as much force as they can muster.
Is that? Okay, now we're back to normal planning and stuff. And for this, okay, this is our last choice. And this time we're gonna do stubborn, okay? And before we continue, I'm just curious. Whoa! We have a better relationship with Caleb. We've talked to Caleb like 5 minutes this route. He's higher than CAISSA. Oh noes. Oh noes. That's an oof. Anyway. That's right. But what else can I do? I won't lose the things I found here. These people need me. I won't walk away.
I told you. She's consistently as stubborn as you are, Reuben.
It's true.
I'm still not convinced this is a good place for you.
You don't have to be.
But we'll help. Protect this place, I mean.
What?
I said we'll help. You think if she can't walk away that we can. There were a lot of kids and people out there that didn't look like they can fight off gangs looking for test subjects. We don't need your help.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt, though.
Look, kid. Helping people is important enough to me I made a career of it. I can't turn my back on this situation when your own safety department is nowhere to be seen.
He did stalk me halfway across the planet because he thought I was kidnapped.
That's some determination, I'll grant him that.
I didn't stalk you.
Tomato, tomato.
You were poring over her records pretty intently, though. I have to admit, it was stalker-like.
Damn, Winter threw his partner under the bus. Reuben making an early play, hello?
I'm a detective. It's my job to investigate things. Investigate, stalk. It's basically the same thing.
Gang up on Reuben. Gang up on Reuben. Reuben was left sputtering indignantly, and I was glad the atmosphere lightened up.
I don't think we can waltz back to New Albion until the situation calms down anyway. And sitting on the sidelines during riots and gang fights doesn't seem right.
We can use everyone we can get. So thank you. Okay. Time for things to go badly, I guess. Okay, so CAISSA turned himself over. No! I wanted more information, but we needed to get him off the street. Especially when we didn't know how safe this area would be, nor for how long. Not here. This isn't the place to talk. Winter, can you help him up? We'll get him back to Cordis and talk there. He also needs to see Celeste. Okay, so she wasn't, like, so in love that she was, like, frantic with worry. Interesting. Felly groaned again as Winter helped him stand. It was good he appeared to be able to walk. With help, anyway.
What's going on here? Why are you roaming around?
I'm not roaming. Word that Crimson has fallen has gotten around. And we've had to make a few people understand that no matter what happened to Crimson, the court isn't a place they can waltz into like it's nothing.
And who's this asshole?
A friend. Let's go. Our arrival to the apartment building caused a massive stir, as I expected. Okay, maybe she's not gonna be able to escape this time? Maybe that's the bad ending. Rowan lunged at me so fast I almost couldn't react. His shoulder hit me mid-torso and knocked the air out of me, but I didn't go down. Okay, so she didn't teleport this time. I stumbled back and barely dodged the heel aimed at my jaw. He was not playing around. His fist came next, and I blocked the first one, managing to maintain my stance. Reuben was scuffling with someone too, and their movements were a distraction I tried to ignore. I threw myself towards Rowan, figuring I had to subdue him first, without hurting him or anyone else. Only one hit landed, and it wasn't enough to do much. I took a side kick to the stomach, one that felt like it liquefied my insides, and hit the floor hard. Ow! Paralyzed by pain and unable to breathe, I couldn't fight back as Rowan pinned me down. There was a sharp pain, and everything went black. And, yep, so they got her out of there. Damn, okay. The next time I regained consciousness, I was aware I was in a vehicle. There were two low voices fading in and out. I tried to speak, but it came out as a moan. My head was fuzzy in a way that made me wonder if I'd been drugged. The thought was fleeting, hazy, and vanished beneath the fog creeping back in. I went back to sleep. When I came to again, it was like waking from a dream. Everything faded in bit by bit. Darkness faded to gray, and the room came into focus. Whoa! This is a swanky apartment. Hello? Ooh. Ah. This is nice. Yo, Reuben, is this your apartment, though? The smell of coffee, the feeling of the blanket covering me, the sound of a news report. My head was pounding, not the eye-blistering headache of psi fatigue, though. It felt more like a hangover. I sat up, rubbing my eyes with a groan, not quite awake enough yet to question where I was. There were quick footsteps and a presence beside me. This is your apartment, isn't it? It suits you. Reuben's worried face came into view.
Finally! Those bastards. I still don't know what they injected you with to keep you asleep this long.
Where? Silence. Reuben looked away, brows coming together in a faint frown.
I'm sorry. I know you didn't want to come back. They held us back while that creep beat the crap out of you. That Celeste woman healed you up, but injected you with a sedative.
I jumped to my feet, swaying alarmingly as vertigo hit with full force. Reuben supported me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders as he helped me sit back down. How long?
Well, you were out for around 20 hours. Then in and out for the last 12.
Damn.
They partially teleported us to the border, and we've been driving since. We got back to my place about an hour ago, and I live on the very edge of one of Cerna's tertiary domes.
Damn it.
You okay?
Just fuzzy.
Want some coffee?
Yes, please. My head was clearing a little, and as Ruben got up, I focused in on the news report playing a few feet away. The world dropped from under me when I realized what I was seeing and hearing.
With a search for the bodies of Caris Fianchetto and his son CAISSA still underway at the Fianchetto mansion, the fate of Erythros Industries seems uncertain. The location of CAISSA Fianchetto's newly announced fiancé is currently unknown. Sources say she may not have been at the mansion at the time of the attack.
No. No, no, no.
Now that the culprits of this unprecedented attack have been identified as the organization known as the Court, Delphine's Senate has allowed a task force into the heart of their territory in Chestershire to clear them out.
Ooh, they pinned it on the court. Interesting.
Several of the leaders are still at large, with others said to be in custody or dead.
Nausea churned in my stomach. I was too stunned to even react. It was like my brain couldn't keep up with what I was hearing. How quickly everything fell apart. None of this was supposed to happen. I let out a low sob as Ruben joined me again. And then he was gathering me into his arms and murmuring that it was going to be all right, that I would be all right. We somehow ended up on the Ruben route. Good. That somehow things would work out. I sobbed into his chest and couldn't see how anything could be all right again. Hey! We got checkmated. Shattered court. Wow. We ended up with, after all that, we ended up with Ruben. Okay, so Case is probably not dead. He probably got handed over to Nyx. But they pinned the attack on the mansion on the court. How did they swing that? Man, damn. That was unfortunate for everybody involved, basically. Sheesh. This is what happens when you drug the queen and get her out of there. Oy, I definitely prefer the other endings we've seen so far, not gonna lie. That was a long, bad ending. I hope you guys enjoyed. We had a lot of interesting alternative scenes and a very interesting ending and sneak peek at Ruben's route, I guess. Kind of, in a way. Yeah. Anyway, one more bad ending to go, I guess. Hopefully I'll see you there, guys.